Hi there, and welcome to the 52nd episode of Career Stories Live. So today I'm joined by Holly Hobbs. So welcome, Holly. Thank you for joining me today.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's been really great to talk to you. So Holly and I connected quite recently, actually, on LinkedIn. I think I saw her comment on a post that one of my connections had written about apprenticeships, and I was just really impressed with her profile. So I thought it would be great to have you on to have a chat. So thank you again. So anyone that's watching that hasn't seen these sessions before, please do comment to let us know that you're here, where you're joining from. Feel free to ask any questions or share your experience in the comments. And if you're watching on replay, then if you do the same thing, and we'll catch up later with those. So the basis for these lives is I've really just been interested in what people do and why they do it, like learning about different roles and career paths. And the aim really is to inspire thought about what people can do and give people advice on places to source information, etc. So with all that in mind, we'll go over to you, Holly. So could you give us a brief intro to you and what it is you're doing work-wise right now?
Sure. So thank you for having me once again. My name is Holly Hobbs and I'm an ex-degree apprentice at Microsoft. And I'm now the founding director of Apprentivia, where I connect employers to apprentices via social media.
Excellent. Okay, and we're definitely going to talk a lot about that as we go through. So I start by asking about early careers. So kind of when you were at school, when you were at college, did you have any kind of jobs then? And if so, has that helped you in any way?
Yes, 100%. So when I was at college, my first job was at Tesco's. So I was on the checkouts, and then I moved to the customer service desk, and I was progressing within that. And that job taught me so much. One of the most pinnacle things that it taught me that I take throughout my career today was actually to not judge a book by its cover. I remember there was this one colleague that when I first started was very cold towards most people, couldn't really gel with her, etc. And it wasn't until I actually got to know her that the barriers broke down, and she was such a nice person. We got on so well, and I'd got her completely wrong in my mind. I just couldn't believe it. And it was the same for customers. When I joined Tesco, there was a lot of my colleagues saying, oh, there's this person that comes in all the time, don't talk to them, they're annoying, blah, blah, blah. But actually, when you speak to that person, a lot of the time they're just lonely, like they're locals, they're lonely, and they actually need someone to chat to. So that was like one of the biggest lessons of that job. I absolutely loved that job.
Oh, that's lovely. So you kind of learnt a lot about empathy, I guess, already.
Yeah,
Yeah, that sounds.
definitely. Just to get to know people and give everyone an equal chance.
Yeah, and like you said, and I think supermarkets particularly, you do get elderly people that are going in there for companionship, don't you?
Yeah.
So if you spotted that, that's really good.
Exactly. And so many colleagues would just dismiss them and be like, just don't bother, blah, blah, blah. But I'd be like, I'm going to just chat to them and see what's going on. And actually, it was actually really nice to have those conversations and get to know them.
Yeah, definitely. And you can get really good advice from people as well in those kind of conversations, I always think.
Yeah, exactly.
So excellent. Okay, that's really good. I think retail is often a really good place for people to kind of get a bit of that experience, because you learn a bit about people, like you say, don't you, as well as learn about money and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And you learn how to be professional, deliver that customer service, and not let your emotions get in the way of work.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. So did you plan to go to university?
No, so I never wanted to go to university. I knew straight off the bat that, one, I didn't want the debt. Two, the life, partying, etc. didn't appeal to me. And three, I knew that I wanted to start working straight away, earning my own money, gaining my independence. And also, I didn't have a very specific idea of a course that I wanted to do. So I was like, well, if I'm going to be going to university, it needs to have a very specific career path to make sure that I'm spending money that's worth it in the future. And for me, none of those boxes ticked, really. So yeah, I was just like, there's no point really doing that. My parents, when they were young, both didn't go to university. My dad's never been, but my mum did end up going when she was 40.
Okay.
So it was never really in my immediate family as well. So they didn't put loads of pressure on me. And also, I always knew deep down that, as I said, I wanted to work.
Yeah.
And I wanted to start my own business. And actually, I followed a lot of successful entrepreneurs online. and they'd always say like, I didn't go to university, or I didn't do this, and here's how I actually built up my success. And so I guess from a young age I knew that university didn't equal success because of those types of people online, basically.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Did you feel any pressure from school or anything like that that you should be going to university, or was it okay?
Yeah, really good question. I think the pressure was more from peers because all my previous friends were going down that route.
Right, okay.
But the thing is, I've always been so determined and like stubborn, and like if I want to do something, that's what I'll do. So it sort of didn't really faze me, to be honest. And my school, they weren't pressuring people to go to university, but equally they didn't have knowledge around apprenticeships. So I was sort of just left in this like awkward phase where I was just like, okay, I'm sort of going to have to navigate it myself.
Yeah.
I'm not being forced down a route. They didn't really have much knowledge, so it was really awkward at that time period, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm sure. So that led me on to my next question there. So how did you decide that you wanted to do an apprenticeship? Did you know people that had done them before, or come from what you were listening to?
So how did I decide I wanted to do one? So what happened was EY their early careers teams I've actually spoken to the lady that deployed this program, funnily enough. They were running like a program where their apprentices had to go back into the schools where they started. So what happened was when I was in sixth form, this previous sixth former that was there came in, did a presentation about degree apprenticeships and how he was at EY and it had benefited him in XYZ way. And before that assembly, I was like, no, I'm not doing an apprenticeship. Like, are you blooming kidding me? These are people that don't get the grades. I had really negative misconceptions about them.
Yeah.
I went into that, I was like, oh, whatever, I'll just listen to it. I never heard of degree apprenticeships before. Couldn't believe you could get a degree for free. And he completely changed my mind about it because it was someone that had been in my position, that was relatable to me, of a young age, etc. And that's when I decided, okay, if someone that's been in a similar position to me has done it and it's benefited him in XYZ ways, maybe it's not as bad as I thought. And that's when everything started to change for me, and when I chose to go down that route.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's like you said, getting someone in that's a similar age to you, that's much more powerful than just reading a bit of literature.
Literally, yeah. So many employers and schools now are trying to use their apprentices or use previous students to really help these students conceptualize apprenticeships and videos and things like that, because written things don't really resonate a lot of the time. And also if it's someone that's already at the school presenting to them, it can sometimes be a bit like, why am I going to listen to them? Because they don't realise an outside sort of perspective. Because it's their teacher that's teaching them every day. If someone new comes in fresh into school, it can sometimes flip that switch.
Definitely. Yeah, that's really good. So how did you find and then get that apprenticeship at Microsoft? So I'm guessing it was probably quite competitive.
Yes, very. So how I found it was, so I basically faced 30 rejections before that. And I was like, I just don't even know if I'm going to get into an apprenticeship, to be honest. And I found Microsoft's one as one of the last ones, and I was like, do you know what have I got to lose? Like, I'm either going to get this last one, or I'm just going to have to wait until next year or something like that. So I found it through the website getmyfirstjob.co.uk. I was just searching these websites constantly. And I got into it basically by thinking about all these other rejections that I face and sitting down and really assessing, what have I learned from this? What did I do wrong? What feedback did I get, if any? What did I do right? What went well? And I just decided I'm going to put everything I've got into this application, because before I was just like, I didn't realise they were so competitive, because in my head there was only like 2 other people in my sixth form applying for apprenticeships. So if I can only see that, I'm not going to see the thousands of applicants I get. So I wasn't putting that much effort in, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, 30 rejections later, I'm like, okay, this is actually really difficult. So when Microsoft came around, it was the last one really for that year. And I was like, I'm just going to put everything into it. And basically I ended up spending hours and hours on the process, researching like crazy, putting everything I had into it, and got into it basically, and it paid off. But I wouldn't have got there without facing all of that rejection from beforehand.
Yes.
So I'm really pleased I did go through that in hindsight.
Yeah. Well, that's really good that you had the kind of determination to keep going, because I think some people would kind of just ditch the idea. So that's really good. And then you mentioned that was it for that year. So would you have been able to then apply the following year if you wanted to? You don't have to do it the same year that you finish A levels or anything like that.
Yes, yeah. So you can. So, I mean, for me, I could have still got an apprenticeship that same year if I wanted to join like a smaller company.
Yeah.
For me, I wanted to join one of the big, well-known corporate brands, and they typically recruit on a yearly cycle.
Right, okay.
So I would have had to wait until the next year, but it's absolutely fine. If you don't get one, you can sort of do that. It doesn't matter with ages.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. And that led me into the next question about what interested you about the apprenticeship. So it was a corporate kind of work in.
Yeah, so I was just thinking to myself, like, these are massive brands that I know that I use. I want to see what actually goes on behind the scenes and internally. And to be honest, as I sort of mentioned, I'd applied for so many. I wasn't specifically like, I need to get into Microsoft. Microsoft is the one I want, blah, blah, blah. It was sort of just like everything that happened up until that point was taking me there.
Yeah.
And so I was just applying to as many as I could, to be honest with you.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And how was that program structured at Microsoft? Was it like a rotation where you went around different departments, or was it?
Well, no, unfortunately, I did want that, but unfortunately they don't do that. So how it was structured was basically 3 years, or however long the program was, but I was on the degree once, that was 3 years. And then at the end, like, you have like an endpoint assessment, but you are meant to be in one department for the whole time. I did try to move departments actually, but it didn't work. So they weren't very flexible.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's just because they have such big cohorts. So if you're saying yes to one person, they've got to say yes to everyone, and that's just not really doable.
Yeah, I think that's the thing.
There are companies that do have the rotations. So.
Yeah. No, I was going to say I used to manage a graduate program in a financial services company, and we did have a rotation. It was 3 placements over 2 years, but actually that it does present challenges in itself, because a lot of the managers, they get to know the graduate, and then they don't want to release them, so then they won't release them, and then you've got people waiting to come into that department, and then there's some departments that are way more popular than others, so it's quite a logistical challenge to have that. So I can understand why they don't, but on the same side, it's quite nice to have it, because people do get that experience.
Literally, it really, really is. Yeah,
that's cool. So did you enjoy working there? Did you like the program? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I wouldn't have been able to start, grow and build this business that I have now without doing that apprenticeship. I always remember when I first got in, my manager was saying to me, okay, here are the tasks that you're going to be looking after. And she was like, so I was in the consulting department, and I was in the sales excellence team of that. So it was dealing with all like the sales pipeline and things like that, the data side of it. And my manager was saying, okay, you're going to be looking after the pipeline hygiene. And I was, how old was I? Like 18, must have been 17, 18. And pipeline hygiene, I thought pipeline was on a house, like a pipe. And hygiene was when you're cleaning something. I literally looked at her like, what the hell? I was so confused. And that's like a pinnacle thing you need to know in business. You need to keep your sales pipeline clean, healthy, etc. And so it completely changed my life and stood me up for success in like business, etc. And that's why I'm such a big advocate, because I recommend them to everyone. It was amazing. Really did enjoy it. Made some great friends. Had a great experience.
That's really good. And were you office based or home based or a bit of both?
I was hybrid, So I was actually assigned to the Reading office. So
close to me. Yeah,
literally. But they also had a central London. So I sort of liked central London, to be honest. So I would just go between both, and then some days work from home.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. And I think I work with quite a lot of students now that say they want to be completely home-based, and it's really hard, but I want to say I think that's such a mistake to be completely home-based. I think you learn so much by going into the office. Have you got a view on that?
I would 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
I would even say like go in 4 or 5 days a week if you can.
Yeah.
You can't beat that in-person connection. You just can't beat it. And I think sometimes you gravitate towards being comfortable and being at home, being in your environment, but ultimately growth lies in when you're outside of your comfort zone. So I think it's super important.
Yeah, and I think you learn just by watching people as well, don't you? That's the thing when you're in the workplace, and you can't do that when you're at home.
Exactly, no. And you build those relationships that will then help you out later on in your career as well. Like it's so much more to just the here and now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such an important point about that kind of early networking. And you know, I mentioned the graduate program. I mean, I left my corporate role 21 years ago now. I've been self-employed since then, but I still am in regular contact with those people that I knew in my early career and still get work from them because, you know, like you say, that relationship building in person is so important.
So important.
Okay, so what then made you go and set up your business, so the Early Talent Employer Branding Agency?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what made me do it was when I got into Microsoft on the apprenticeship scheme, I started to document my journey on TikTok. And suddenly I realised I was reaching millions of people and I used to get hundreds, thousands of comments, people saying, I'm going through the exact same thing. I can't secure an apprenticeship. I don't understand them, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, for the first time, I'm not the only one that went through this. Wow, I need to use my experience to help other people. So I started the business December 2021, actually, firstly on the basis of supporting young people into apprenticeships. So I wrote 2 ebook resources and I was planning to release more ebooks, like a resource library, etc. And then slowly my ideas started to progress and I realized actually employers need some support as well with this, and I need to be that bridge to the gap between these young people and employers. And one way I could do that was through social media, videos, marketing, because that's helping both people. That's helping the young people understand the roles and the employers connect and engage with them. And as part of that, my resources now come into it. So the business has had like a few different stages of like involvement, but that's essentially how it started, and that's what made me set it up, because I was like, I need to help these other people because I've just been through all of this. I've got to use it to help, basically.
Excellent. So are you still using TikTok quite heavily in your work?
Yes. Everything's pretty much based on TikTok.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, so I always talk to people about their values. So do you think your personal values have an impact on your work and who you work with?
Yes, definitely. So I think mine's more of like a phrase, but something that I value so much is this, that failure teaches you more than success ever will. And I completely live my life by that. I think you can turn everything into a positive and help it actually spur you on and progress you in life. That plays a pinnacle part in the work I've done and the work I do. And then also something else I value is on the job learning. I'm always someone that just throws myself into something. I'm like, I don't want to read about it. I don't want to whatever. Just put me in the situation and I'll learn to swim. And I just find I pick things up so much quicker and better. I don't want to sat there reading textbooks. Just let me get on with it and just see how I do. Let me fail, let me make mistakes, let me try again, blah, blah, blah. And that's why I'm so passionate about apprenticeships as well, because I value that so much. Apprenticeships are on the job learning. And so it just comes together with me so much and makes me want to grow the apprenticeships even more within the UK so that other people can get on that type of learning.
I think that's such an important thing for people to know, that making mistakes is fine. I think so many people are really scared about making a mistake and then getting in trouble about it. But if you've got a supportive manager, I think that's, like you say, that's the best thing. Making a mistake is going to...
And some people are even scared of asking the wrong questions, or not the wrong, but asking what they think is the wrong question. Asking question. It goes even down to that. I remember when I was starting out, they were like, no question stupid, blah, 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 ask anything. And it's like, yeah, you really do have to tell people that, because they are quite conscious a lot of the time of what people are thinking, or like if they're going to get in trouble, etc.
Yeah. And like you said, someone will ask that question, and then it'll be like, oh, everyone else was thinking that.
Literally. That's happened to me so many times. I used to be that person, like, I don't want to ask.
Yeah. But are you now one of the first to ask the questions?
Yes. I always adopt the saying, I don't really know if it's belief, but I adopt this basically, lean into the resistance. So what I say to myself all the time, if I'm ever experiencing resistance in my head or whatever, I'm like, don't really want to answer that. I'm like, lean into it. I just put my hand up. Like, my body doesn't act with my brain. Like, my body will be like, boom, before my brain's had a chance, but I want to ask it, because my body's like, just do it.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good.
So I always lean into that fear, and I'm just like, this is the only way I'm going to grow. Just do it, Holly. Just stop complaining, stop moaning, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good way to live. Just asking, because then you can build on that, can't you? You can create a conversation. They'll be happy that you've asked. Some new ideas come out, things like that as well sometimes.
Exactly. Connection, new people. Yeah, just asking questions is so powerful. Even the other day, I'm getting trousers altered. It's a bit off topic, but anyway, I went to this alterations lady that I actually went to 5 years ago when I was getting my prom dress altered, and back then I was like that person that didn't want to ask questions and blah blah blah. And now I can see this growth in me, because I went to her a few days ago, and she had like this planner, and I'm really interested in my organisation, etc. And it was like, I had this thought of like, I really want to ask her about that. And just before we was about to go, I was like, boom, just ask her. Yeah. And then she was telling me about how she organises her business, how she does all this. And it really inspired me. And that came just out of asking one question. And previous me would never have done that, never have been inspired, never have got all these tips. But now, just asking one question, I got all that like benefit from it. So it doesn't have to be this whole conversation needs to be planned out. Just ask one question, just to see where it takes you. Yeah, and I think that's a really good example as well, because it's someone that's making amendments to dresses and trousers. You wouldn't think there's a whole business strategy behind it. Actually, there is. And that goes back to my lesson at Tesco: don't judge a book by its cover. Yeah. Me 5 years ago would have been like, "What's this lady going to teach me?" If I'm being honest. Actually, she taught me so much, and she was really inspiring. She was such a lovely woman. Yeah, no, that's really good to hear. So we've touched on your online community already, but so you have got a huge online community. So how did you go about building that? A hell of a lot of consistency. I've posted every day for the past probably like however long I've had the account, to be honest. So it's coming up to 3 years, just over 2.5 years. Posted literally every day without fail. Yeah, and it's just not giving up. Like, I didn't get 40,000 followers, whatever, overnight. It's taken almost 3 years. Yeah. And also like doing lots of learning outside. Yeah. 1, learning on the job, like I've said before, and 2, taking courses, meeting people that are content creators that are much bigger than me, learning from them, being a sponge effectively, just trialing and testing things and being a sponge is how I built it. Yeah. And did you have to get all the kind of fancy equipment early on, or did you start a bit more low tech? Or not at all. To be honest, now I don't really have fancy equipment. All I use is my iPhone. Yeah. And I did at the start, I got some like cheap microphones from Amazon, but now I've got like £300 microphones. So I have invested in some of my equipment, but it's at the end of the day, it's still like an iPhone that I use every day. It's not all this camera lighting, like it's not that. So you really don't need a lot to start. I think a lot of people think they need a crazy camera and they need all this stuff, and they're sort of procrastinating starting, but actually you don't need that. Yeah. Oh, that's good. I need to find you on TikTok. I have got an account, but I've not used it at all. But so, and the videos you do, are they kind of short form videos, or do you have a mixture? Yeah, short form. All short form, all pretty much 60 seconds, maybe a little bit more, but 60 seconds or less. Sometimes I do some pictures, because TikTok now has like picture swipes. and like live videos you can do like this. You can do that on TikTok.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty much all videos.
Yeah, that's good. So have you got any advice for anyone that wants to go down that route? So any kind of school leavers or anything that wants to go down?
Loads. So
Yeah.
I would say, one, as I sort of mentioned before, don't give up.
Yeah.
It took me 14 months to land my first client since starting the business. That's a hell of a long time to just keep going, even though you're literally bringing in clients. But if you've got a dream and you know there's a demand for it, just keep blooming going. I think people give up far too easy. And to be honest, I didn't really have a plan B. I was just like, this is going to work. And I knew there was, because I'd lived that experience, I knew there was a market and a need for it. I wasn't just naively doing this thing I think it's going to blow up. But the point was I showed up every day no matter what. And then the second thing I'd say is also to get a mentor. I also recognise, right, I'm going to show up every day for this, but also I don't know everything. I barely know anything in business because I'm just starting out. So I got a mentor, and I got someone that is doing insane in her career. She's amazing on LinkedIn. And I saw her, and one day I was like, do you know what? I'm going to reach out to her on Instagram. Messaged her, reached out. And this goes on to my third point. Someone that was close to me was saying to me, Holly, she's never going to reply. Like, she's not going to have time for that, blah, blah, blah. She's not going to be mentoring you. And thank God that I didn't listen to him. And as I said, it goes on to my third point, because it's like sometimes the people around you, yes, they're your family, friends, whatever it is, but actually sometimes you just have to believe in yourself and go with your gut and make your own decision and not listen to those people.
Yeah.
Because if I listened to that person, I wouldn't be where I am today. So number one, don't give up. Number two, get a mentor. They are fantastic, pinnacle. And number three, be careful who you listen to.
Yeah, that's really good. I've just listened to a book called 3 Feet from Gold, and actually they talk about that a lot, about the difference between advice and counsel, and exactly that point. Really think about who you're asking, because everyone's got an opinion, but they're not doing what you're doing. So find the people that you want to ask advice for really wisely. So yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so have you got advice for students who are looking for an apprenticeship? Obviously, they need to be following you on TikTok and LinkedIn.
Yeah, follow me on TikTok. I think something that I didn't do was actually go to in-person events, because I didn't know about this. So that would be aside from my ebooks and my TikTok, I've got loads of advice on there. My biggest piece of advice would be to go to events. There's events called the National Apprenticeship Show, exact thing that you want to go to. That's all across the country. Yeah. There's also an event called the National School and College Leaver Festival. Brilliant events, and there's so many employers there with their apprentices in some cases, and recruiters that you can go and speak to and get the inside scoop, put a face to your name on their system, make an impression. Yeah. It's something that I think would have fast-tracked me in the process and would have really, really helped me. And I know it helps a lot of people. So that would be my one suggestion if you're looking to get into an apprenticeship.
Excellent. Okay. And you mentioned one website where you found Microsoft. Are there lots of websites where you can find apprenticeship positions?
There are loads. So there's getmyfirstjobs.co.uk where I found it. Yeah. LinkedIn, what we're on now. Actually, a lot of people don't think about LinkedIn, but there's a little jobs tab at the bottom, and there's all the recruiters on there, obviously, so they're posting about it all the time. So LinkedIn's actually a bit of a goldmine. There's the Government Find an Apprenticeship Service, which is like the main website, essentially, and that's free for all employers to post on. So the majority of vacancies are on there. UCAS have also now started to advertise apprenticeships, so that's another. I found a few vacancies that I couldn't really find anywhere else on UCAS. Also, just like going to companies' websites directly. If there's a company that someone thinks, oh, I'd love to find out a bit about that, I'd love to work there, I use that all the time, just go to their careers websites and see if they offer that. Yeah. They might as well do.
Brilliant. No, that's really
I've got loads of other websites in my ebooks, and also I speak about on my TikTok how you can actually reach out to companies that aren't advertising as well. that aren't actually recruiting an apprentice because it might actually be on their agenda. They just haven't got around to it. So if they're having someone approach them, it might fast track the process.
Yeah, that's a really good point as well. Okay, well, what we're doing after the session is just add links to your TikTok and your ebook in the notes so that people can see them. So yeah, we're about out of time now. So thank you so much, Holly, for joining me today. I think we could have carried on talking about this for ages. So yeah, it's really good to chat to you. So thank you for anyone that's been watching. And I'm taking a few weeks off over the summer in terms of the career stories, but I will be posting an announcement about my guests from September. So thanks again. So yeah, so thank you, and I'll see you next time. See you.
Bye.